Inside the Birds is back with Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan.
That's right. Inside the Birds is back. What a great job. What a great way to kick off Inside the Birds for the postseason of 2000. Well, it's 2023, but the 2022 season, then having a fantastic introduction right there from my daughter, Raina Mosher. Adam Caplan, are you fired up? Did that fire you up?
I know. It did. It got me fired up, man. That she's what. In fact, the last time she did it, people were like, okay, can we have her replace the other guy?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Adam. We have to replace you. You were the other guy, right? Not me. Oh no, wait, it's me. I do the introductions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's great. It was fun. She was practicing that as well. And again,
Nice.
I love the fact that Raina is an Inside the Birds listener. That's always she's always telling me things that we say on the podcast. So really cool to have her on. I appreciate that. We got a lot to talk about, man. We got some really good stuff here. You know, that game against the Giants, I know not a lot of people were thrilled with it, but there were some really interesting developments, you know, in the secondary, obviously, Adam, on the offensive line. There are some injuries. There's some other stuff that's going on offensive and defensively. So this is our way right here, the last sort of Inside the Birds of the regular season, to kind of recap what happened and then do a little bit of a look ahead as to what this team was going to encounter when they play a playoff game. But I want to start by saying that we said this on the post-game show, and I kind of want to reiterate it. No matter what you felt about the way the season ended, the way the last game ended, this Eagles team won 13 of its first 14 games, won 14 games for the first time in franchise history, has the bye, has number one seed in the conference. The road to the Super Bowl in the NFC goes through Philadelphia. You could not have asked for more from this season than what you got, and including a quarterback who is an MVP candidate. I think it's been it's an amazing season.
So I talked to Mike Gill about this, but I didn't really go into it much. So before we did that segment on Tuesday, I talked to a coordinator whose team, here's what I didn't say, that this coordinator's team is in the playoffs, but I'm not going to tell you if it's offense, defense, or special teams, or even assistant special teams coach, or a passing game coordinator. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just going to say this. The guy was extremely complimentary of the Eagles because he knows that I live in this market. So, and he knows that you and I do the show.
Right.
So I talk to this guy, I don't know, once every 5 or 6 weeks. And he asked me some questions and he goes, man, you sound like a fan. I said, what do you mean? He's like, you're criticizing the coordinator. I said, no, Gavin's done a very good job, but there's some issues, which I said my partner and I have talked about since the first game last year. It's access for the receivers to get off the line. I said it's the one thing he's got to do better with. It's anyone who follows his team closely knows this. Right. He goes, okay, that could be adjusted, but he goes, I got to tell you, he goes, I would die to have a 14-3 team. Are you kidding me? You know how good? He goes, guys in our business know that's a great roster. I was like, okay, I said that's good to hear this because I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you guys see. Or even look at rosters. I don't know how you do your job in terms of what kind of free time you have, or even if you notice this. Because no, everybody knows Philly's a great organization. And this guy's a straight shooter. He's not trying to, butter anyone up.
Right.
So I asked him for some thoughts, and he goes, "Look, they're one of the 4 best teams in the NFL." He goes, they might make the Super Bowl, but he goes, look, he goes to be 14-3, and this plays on your point. It's hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. Make the playoffs is hard enough. To have a record like this with all the challenges with injuries, lineup changes, and this is a new staff, relatively new staff.
Yep.
In its second year, it's an incredible accomplishment.
It's going to be a good week of talking Eagles football. Obviously, you'll have your power rankings up on InsideTheBirds.com soon. So interesting to see. And that'll be the final one until the end of the Super Bowl. Obviously, no reason to keep, doing it throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, I got one for you. Got one nugget. I'm pretty much done. Because I wonder how fans think about this. So I want to do ours differently when we started doing them last year. I think last year started doing them. So I ranked them, 1 to 32, but I have a team that did not make the playoffs in my top 12. I don't go by like the Seahawks. If you know what happened, the Rams got cheated. Basically, there were so many bad calls in the Rams game. The Lions were the team that actually got cheated because of stupid referee mistakes. And I can imagine if I'm the Rams, I'm setting like at least 8 plays in that were bad by the referees. Well, the Lions got job for it. I have the Lions in my top 12. They're just better than the Seahawks. They just are.
I think that's fair. I really do think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the Lions lost to the Seahawks very early in the season. It was a great game with super high scoring. But I look at it more of who are really the best teams based on not only performance but best rosters and so forth. So it's a shame. I really wanted to see the Lions get in. The Seahawks sure get destroyed. Vegas thinks they will, and we'll probably talk more about this on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But the Niners, what are they? 10.5 points, 10.5 point favorite.
Yeah, it's pretty hefty. Yeah. Didn't the Lions also beat the Giants this year, or was it
killed them
in reverse?
Killed them.
Yeah, and so you could make an argument that they're even better than the Giants, who are the sixth seed. Yeah,
yeah. And the Giants have overachieved. They've had quite the season. We'll get into our tape notes we've got from our people.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's a fans league, and the commissioner, for all that he gets criticized of, I love the super wild card weekend, as they call it. It's so great. We have. The only things I don't like is the Monday night, having one on Monday night. I mean, do we have to really stretch it out that much? Yes.
You knew they did. Of course they do.
Good, they want to make more money. I get it, but I just wish we would have seen the Lions. That's the last thing I'm going to say. But I just thought that it would be great for fan interest because they have a fun football team.
Never know what's in store for the future, but something tells me we'll be seeing the Lions in the playoffs in a season near us, like next year. I mean, I like the direction they're headed. They got Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, is that the wide receiver from out?
Yeah, Jamo.
They got him back, and then remember they have the Rams' first-round pick, which I believe is the 5th or 6th overall pick in the draft coming up. So they're already a good, young, improving team that just got back one first-round pick, about a month ago, and now is about to add 2 into the mix come for the next season, unless they trade them to move out. Who knows what they do? But the bottom line is they're going to be for real. So
they have, they have the 6th overall, and they have the 18th. They don't need a quarterback. They not that it's any kind of debate, but Brad Holmes, their GM, made it pretty clear on Tuesday during his press conference that he was with Geoff with the Rams, but Geoff had a really good year, certainly. And we have to start voting next week. So
right,
I got to start doing some homework, but. No, look, we know this is an Eagles show, but we do bring up stuff around the league. We're not immune to it. So
sure.
It's all about what the fans want, obviously, and they like to see better games. And it's a shame I'd be shocked if the Seattle Niners game was close or competitive, but we'll see.
Yeah. So on that vein, our next podcast that'll drop Friday morning. Obviously, it's during the season. That's our game preview podcast. But with the Eagles having a bye, there's no game to preview. So you had a great idea, and we're gonna bring it to the podcast for Friday. You, me, and Andrew DeCecco are going to do an end of the year sort of Eagles recap pod. We're going to do awards, best player on the team, offensive player, best rookie. We'll go through a litany of categories and give our selections for that, and just have an overall, good, objective, analytically based discussion on the Eagles, their off season, and reward the guys that deserve to be, and maybe talk a little bit about the playoffs too, but mostly kind of just recap the season and give our awards out. So I look forward to that. I know Andrew's excited, and I think it's a good idea for a show.
I can't wait. Yeah. Do we do this? I don't think we did this before. No, I don't think we've done that before. In fact,
we didn't do it last year because they played in the first, so we were already on to Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
as Bill Belichick would say.
Yeah, exactly. And they were so bad in 2020. Yeah, there was just no. So yeah, I'll look forward to doing that. But it's been a very good regular season. It's the team actually. I would say they were a little better than I expected. I had them for 12 wins. They were 14. The win range I gave them was 12 to 14. But I just so much could go wrong, and they had their share of injuries late in the season. Sometimes it's hard to know because you think the roster is really good, but sometimes the players don't play up to that. This is one of those times around the NFL of 32 teams. The roster was just as good, if not better than you thought, which doesn't really happen very much.
Correct. That's true. And yes, you're right. This is the first time in the history of ITB that the Eagles have had a first-round bye. Our first year was after the Super Bowl. So our first ITB postseason, they were playing Chicago in the first round, and then they played Seattle in the first round. And then, of course, they had, the disastrous year after that, and then Tampa Bay last year. So it's the first round bye for ITB. I'm proud of us, Adam. We earned the bye. No, good for us.
And we could do some different things, and we got a couple other things which we're waiting to announce. We're kind of finalizing an idea. Yep. That's all we're going to say, but should probably happen. There's several things we could do next week because we don't have to preview the game until whoever they play, and we don't know. Our schedules could stay exactly the same, but we don't know who they're going to play until Sunday night or Monday night, depending on who loses and who wins. Like if Seattle wins, the Eagles will play Seattle. That one's if they shock the world, boy, that would be pretty good for the Eagles if Seattle had to fly in here after
would it though?
Shocking the world. What's that?
I know. Listen, I'm not a believer in history repeating itself just because, but man, the Eagles have not beaten Seattle.
I know
since I was there. It was in Seattle, and I think it was 2011.
I know.
10,
BY.
9. It's a
BY
long time ago. Yeah.
BY was Vince Young was quarterback, wasn't he?
For the Eagles. Oh, that's right. No. They won the game. It was definitely McNabb. Brent Selleck had 100 and something yards. In that game. So I'll have to go back and look. But it's
that they won. I'm sorry.
Quite a while. Yeah, it's quite a while. They've lost every game since.
No, because I just remember what a disaster that game was, the Vince Young game.
Yeah.
And then was it 16 when Aguilar couldn't line up?
Yep. That was 16, and then they lost to him again in 17.
Then the playoffs, but I just remember Greg Lewis trying to get him to get onside.
Yeah.
Oy.
Not good. They definitely struggled against Seattle. I remember Russell Wilson had a 55-yard read option touchdown run where I think it was Trent Cole just completely bit on it, and so I don't know. Seattle coming in here, it's like I think most Eagles fans would rather see like the Giants or the Cowboys, even Tom Brady right now, than another.
And I'll tell you what, Geno Smith is he's balling. I mean, this guy, he's slinging it. He's played great. It's hard to believe based on how much of a journeyman he was. It's one of the most unlikely stories I think in history, at least my time covering. I don't know about you, but I can't think of anything more unlikely. I'm not talking about Kurt Warner. Unlikely that's a different level. Kurt Warner was not drafted.
Right.
So a guy who was drafted in the second round, who everyone wrote off why not write him off? He didn't do anything.
Sure.
And he come out of the blue like this. It's just what a great story I just think it's a great human interest.
It is a fantastic story. All right. Let's just talk real quick. Q&A will be out today in the afternoon. They just needed an extra day for recording, so look out for that. It's going to be a great show. Last week's show, I was told by a lot of viewers and listeners, was the best Q&A show they can remember in a long time, and they thought all the shows were great. So that was really to me indicative of how great Q&A was last week. I mean, they were on their AAA plus.
And by the way, Q maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think I've seen Q that fired up. He's kind of even keel.
Yep.
Even he was fired up. I guess Jay got going.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, man. Yeah, you're right.
Listen, Jason on just the whole Chicago 85 Bears comparison was like his whole face took up the screen. He leaned so hard into the camera, like really?
Exactly.
Really? His whole face was taking up the screen.
Do you know that part of Wink Martindale's background is in the 46? He learned some from Buddy Ryan. Yeah, so that Wink does it. I know you got some notes on this. He just does it differently than everyone else. Every coordinator says that they try to break out protection. Few know how to do it. They just say it and they don't do it. Wow. This guy actually does it like no one else. And even playing so many backups, this guy is, and because people hold it against him, the way he dresses and the way he looks. It's a shame. It's awful the way that some people will not take him seriously as a head coaching candidate. He actually interviewed for the Giants head coaching job before. Right. Yeah, it's a shame because the guy's brilliant and he just doesn't get enough credit.
Is there another guy you can think of? Because I was trying to think of this the other day, a guy who just is a little different in how he carries himself, and because of that, has not gotten maybe like an interview that he should. My gosh, if Adam Gase could get 2 head coaching jobs,
I know,
right? Like you got to
offense.
I know, offense, quarterback. Yeah, Peyton Manning.
Yes,
but geez, it's just I don't know. It's strange. I'm just trying to think of somebody else.
It just bothers me. It's a stereotype because the guy is not 6'2" and 220, whatever the case, or he's not in his 30s,
right?
Do you want to win or not? The guy's brilliant. I don't know, man. It's like Rex Ryan had a problem. He kept being passed over for jobs, and he lost some weight and he got a job.
That's a good one. That's an interesting one. Yeah,
he had great success with the Jets. For a while.
Yeah, for 2 years. Yes, absolutely. That's true. All right. What else? Oh, so let's get into the quick. And you accurately kind of referred to this as a good sort of Jedi mind trick by the Eagles organization. They surprisingly had released Sua Opeta when they wanted to clear space to sign. Well, I mean, you could say either Kern or Gardner-Johnson, Robert Quinn, right? 2 guys went on IR. 1 guy got waived. The guy that got waived was Sua Opeta, veteran guard. And as you kind of put it on the show, the pregame show, there was some calculated maneuvering there at the time of his waiving. And obviously it worked because he went through waivers and was brought back. Now, listen, I know that Sua Opeta is not the greatest offensive lineman ever, but in a league deficient of offensive line play, and as I mentioned last podcast, Adam, sometimes teams are more willing to, teams who are out of the playoff picture by week 18 are more willing to take a chance on claiming someone off waivers because they're starting to look toward the future anyway. It was, I mean, I don't know if it was surprising to you or not, but Opeta still was not claimed off waivers and was able to re-sign to the practice squad.
You probably remember this because there's some circumstances. You know, he started in the playoff game last year against Tampa.
Was it I remember he played. I don't remember he started.
He started. Yeah, I knew he did, and I want to make sure I was right. Just to
over who?
Is
there something wrong with Sayamalu?
No. Yes. I'm sorry. Well, here's what happened.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Sayamalu was already out for the year. So go ahead.
Yeah, and Herbie got hurt. Right, Herbie was hurt. So they started Opeta at right guard. It obviously didn't go great. They had some issues. It was obviously just a terrible offensive performance, but
right.
Yeah, I just remembered. I was like, Sua Opeta, didn't he start a big game? Yeah, it was the playoff game against Tampa. No, so what they did is in week 18, the rules changed for waivers. And they actually don't run on Monday. They run, if you cut a guy on Friday for the first 17 weeks, they go on Monday. You cut the guy on Friday. Week 18, they go Friday to Saturday. So the Eagles took a gamble that no one would claim him, and they were right because everyone's trying to figure out what they have to get ready to play the games on Sunday. So they're not worried about claiming a guy off waivers. But you make a great point. You don't know for sure because what if a team that's out of it is looking for like a developmental backup guard? Hey, he's an Eagle. He must, because teams copycat. If they see it's like Gannon and Steichen. We'll talk more about this on Friday. With them getting a bunch of requests, particularly Steichen. Whether the guy's a good coach or not, you look at their numbers, you go, oh, this guy must be great. Let's interview him. Then we want to know what he knows. It's the way the league is.
Right.
So right. Opeta, I guess some teams just didn't like his tape. He didn't get claimed. Wouldn't cost you anything. Wasn't making anything. And,
right. That's why I thought it was somewhat of I would have thought Tyree Jackson or there was another player I thought would be more likely to be a casualty to make room. Who is it? It was it was either Tyree
Jackson's on IR though. Jackson's on IR.
He went back on. He's already on IR again. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's why it wasn't Tyree Jackson.
Yeah.
But there was somebody else I even thought would be a candidate.
Remember when I said that I don't think they're going to cut Sermon? I know it seems ridiculous. He has no role.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't had a carry since I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Jacksonville game.
Yeah.
He looked good he looked good. I know it's only 2 carries, but they want, because of Scott's and Sanders' status for next season, they really would like to take a look at him because he has something that the 3 backs don't have. The other guys have. Is it size? The guy was a 3rd round pick, right? I think he was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. If they were playing any other team than the Giants in the season finale, you might have seen Trey Sermon get snaps over Boston Scott. But we all know that you have to play Boston Scott against the Giants.
Well, let's get started. Let me ask you this question. We'll go over the injuries too. You say that, and Scott, so a friend of mine that's his ticket holder says to me, he goes, why don't Scott? He brought up the Giants thing like you did. He goes, the guy, there's a reason why he's here. Isn't he a good football player? I said, yeah. I said, I don't understand. You brought this up too on our show a couple of weeks ago about his roles. Like you can't really figure it out.
Right.
My friend's like, because he goes, Sanders knee isn't right. I go, yeah, you're right. He said, why don't they just play him in early downs? I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand. I'm kind of with my friend. I was like, I don't know why, because Sermon, they won't play Sermon.
Mm-hmm.
Scott's built like a fire hydrant. He's a good football player. They're paying him a lot of money, about $1.5 million to be a 3rd string running back.
Mm-hmm.
So why not get him in there? We know he's a kickoff returner, but he's also a decent back. He's been here for a while, but they just don't see it. They have a very odd rotation. Last year was very defined. It was Hurts and 1 back, and that's it. And Gainwell in short yardage. This year, it's like, okay, it depends on the game. So I don't know why. I can't answer that, but Scott, he's healthy. I know he's had a couple fumbles. He's really not a fumbler though per se. I'd play him more, but it's just not me. It's just
Well, I
it's the
mean, Trey
coach.
Thomas said the same thing in our post game show, and I remember asking Trey, "Okay, but who are you going to take these snaps away from? Miles Sanders or Kenny
Yes.
Gainwell? So you want to take snaps away from Miles?
No, because his knee's right,
because of
not
his
right. And
knee.
he's
Right.
if
But
you
again,
look
they
at
were playing guys like even Jalen Hurts with injuries because they felt they needed to win that game, and you need to have your best players with the ball in their hands.
right, but that's quarterback versus running back. Where Sanders has got a bad knee. It's clear there's something wrong with it. We don't know exactly what it is. He's been wearing a brace or sleeve on his left knee since he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are not good. 11 for 42, 21 for 65, 12 for 61, 11 for 33. There's something wrong with him.
Well, the numbers of the Eagles running game, I was
It's
going to
gone
get
down.
into that,
For sure.
are I think the last 5 of their last 7
You
games,
had that number. It wasn't
4.0 or under in yards per carry. I mean, this is a team that was 4.2 or over, and in some cases well over in the first 8 weeks of the season. But for whatever reason, and it can't all just be on Jalen Hurts' injury because it's not just those 2 games, but they have not had the same success run. Now, again, teams make adjustments. Teams know what the Eagles are going to do. You face some better defenses like Chicago, like Dallas, things like that. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. But the Eagles have
not Chicago. Yeah, not Chicago.
Chicago's a bad defense. Well, what Chicago did defensively, I will say, that's where I talk about adjustments. They obviously crashed on the running game and made Jalen Hurts keep the ball on the zone reads and let him run, and then tried to hit him as much as possible.
Well, they were throwing
that's
too.
a schematic
also.
adjustment. Yeah, I'm just talking about why when they ran, they didn't have great success running the ball because of what Chicago was doing schematically there. So, so for the last 7 games, they're just not what you saw from the first. We talked about this. The first 7 games, there were times where, whether it was Jacksonville in the rain or Arizona, where it's like the passing game, for whatever reason, whether it was the defense or the elements, wasn't clicking as well. And the Eagles said, okay, we're just going to dominate you in the run game. And they haven't had that kind of a game in the second half of the season, other than the Giants game.
Well, no, actually, the Green Bay game was historic. Week 12.
I was kind of going, all right. So what was that game? What week was that?
That was week 12.
Right. And I said last 7 games. So, all right, it's last 6 games then. So since the Green Bay game.
But I would tell you in that Green Bay game, one thing I would tell you is that, and I know Green Bay's run defense has been leaky, but one thing about these coaches, if they get off to an amazing start with a run, it's not like you say, okay, we're just going to throw 40 times.
Right.
It's just that they want to be a passing team. That's their mentality. That's the way they're going to come out.
Sure.
But if they're kind of like an Andy Reid. Like if he doesn't see it early, it's over. He's throwing the football because he wants to throw the football anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the personnel, the Sanders having a great year. Miles has played very well, but until lately he's kind of struggling for whatever reason. But like the Giants, by the way, they played all their starters in week 14.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles went off. They crushed them with the run. Hurts obviously is a big factor. Sanders had 144. But on what you're saying, if you just look at without Hurts being available or healthy, and we'll get to this past game, the Dallas game, Greg said on our pregame show that he thought Sanders ran hard, though he didn't get explosive runs. Okay, but he didn't have the help of Hurts, having the defense have to worry about Hurts. The Saints clearly didn't have to worry about Hurts in the Saints game, and Sanders ran okay. He ran for over 5 yards a carry, but it was one of these situations that I thought they got a little carried away because Minshew was really good in the first game against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And then this past game, which we'll have this more in depth in a couple minutes, it was like, okay, Hurts is going to play, but you know what? We don't want to expose his shoulder. Well, here's the thing: if you're going to do that, it tells you how they just don't, after what happened with Minshew against the Saints, they're willing to play Hurts without him running, and they still think they could beat the Giants, which they did. Now, do we know that because they knew that the Giants could be playing backups? Can't answer that. But if you saw their game plan, boy, it wasn't exactly high power. They were not putting all their great stuff out there either.
No. All right, let's by the way, before we transition, I do want to bring to light to your point. I don't know if you heard Nick Sirianni's interview on WIP in the morning, but he was asked, he was asked basically, you really have become a passing happy team, and it seems like you don't run as much as maybe earlier in the year. And Nick basically said he really took people inside. He said after the Tampa Bay game, we all sat down. I think he said Jalen Hurts was involved with this too. They kind of sat down as a player, as a coaching staff, and they said, yes, we just did well. Yes, we won 9 games. We got our butts kicked in the playoffs. What do we need to do to be better next year? And they all collectively decided that they needed to improve as a passing team if they wanted to get into the playoffs again and go deep and make a run, which sounds obvious that they needed to be. But, we joked a lot last year. Last year was like the gift to the fans who always love run. But you can't sustain that kind of run heavy offense. And so he went on to say, we knew we needed to get better as a passing team. It's not just Jalen, it's everything. And Jalen, of course, knew he needed to take it upon himself to get better as a passer. And that's what led them to what they were. They get AJ Brown, Devontae Smith year 2, Dallas Goedert, offensive line, and of course, Jalen Hurts improvement. And that's what Nick said. He said, we want to score. We want to throw the ball because that's where we have our weapons. Of course, we want to run, but we want to be able to stick with those teams that are good year after year because they throw the ball really well. And that's the Bills, it's the Chiefs, the Bengals, and other teams. And my God, I know that might frustrate some people that the Eagles claim to be pass happy and pass centric, but if you listened like you and I did, or read or saw the Ron Rivera press conference. Oh my God. They go beat the Cowboys 26-6. Now, 6 of those came on an interception return. So they scored 20 points offensively. That's not great. They averaged 3.7 a run. And Ron Rivera says after the year, this is what we need to be. They ran the ball 41 times. He said, this is not just what we were to win the game. This is what we're going to be. You want to be a team that runs the ball 40 times, averages 3.7 a carry, and scores 20 offensive points in a game? Like, okay, you're not going to win. You might have got Dallas on its worst day and beat them, but that was a game that meant nothing to the Cowboys. I like Ron Rivera, Adam. I really struggled with him sort of beating his chest about that. And then firing Scott Turner. I don't know what, I guess, is Greg Roman around? Like, who are they going to bring in?
He's a ball. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know who he's looking
it was like, I just was mortified after his comments. I'm like, and also with Martin Mayhew, the GM, I'm like, you're really going to, as much as I appreciate them being honest and going on the record. Yeah. This is what you're telling your fan base you're going to hide the quarterback going forward? Like, really? You didn't even have a quarterback. So let's get back to, I love this discussion on Hurts. Mm-hmm. So when they started becoming run heavy, it was really clear to me. They were not going to, I would take a little differently than when I heard Nick's interview on WIP, and I do appreciate him being straight about it, but he's obviously never going to criticize Hurts. Hurts could not handle the volume like he handled this year. He's handled it beautifully this year. He was not ready for it. They wanted to run a specific offense, even though their talent level was not good enough last year. They wanted to be a throwing team, and they couldn't do it because Jalen wasn't ready for it. This year, he was ready for it. They knew this. He got his best friend, AJ Brown. By the way, when you look at their passing personnel, it's clearly a passing team. You have to be. 25 million. I know the APY is 25 million a year for AJ Brown. It's not quite what he's making. That's what the APY is, right? Devontae Smith, former Heisman Trophy winner, first-round pick, stud of a player. My God, is he good? 2,000-yard receivers. Oh, by the way, Dallas Goedert, $14.5 million a year. Top 5 highest paid tight end. You want to run the football? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What year are we in?
Yeah, that would be a waste of money if you were running the ball 66% of the time.
No, I know that people were pissed off. We got the numbers for you. They're totally deceiving with what the way the Eagles came out. I know they came out throwing it on the first 10 plays, but you're clearly, the run game people don't want the truth of what happened on the first 2 drives. But first of all, when you see the personnel the Giants are putting out there at corner, I really don't want to be super negative with these. Hey, they get paid too. The Rodarius Williams, who's basically a 5th corner. Right. Nick McLeod, we told you they're going to go after in the first game they did. Nick McLeod, who had a sack, I think. These are number 4 and number 5 corners on any other team. This is what they have as backups. Although Nick McLeod's essentially a starter now because they play 6 DBs a lot. You're going to throw the ball. That's it.
Yeah.
That-
I mean, the third play of the game was him connecting with AJ Brown on was that the
Yes.
second play of the game? On a beautiful, 35-yard strike down the left. It was just beautiful.
And the
You know,
cross, the crosser
yes.
off of an RPO was beautiful. It's great
Yes.
throw by Jalen. So
Yep.
I know people who want to run the football, you can't, you could give them every number in the book. You could talk, we'll get John DeFilippo to talk about this next time he comes on. He'll explain it better. Not sure as hell. I have this discussion 1,000 times about why he wants to come out passing. He just he has a certain philosophy, as some of the best coordinators in NFL history believed. Bill Walsh, the #1 guy, believed that you throw in the first half. That's the way you do things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't ignore your running back. Sanders has had a good year, but Eagles are a pass first, mix the run in. I sometimes scratch my head when they completely ignore Sanders, but how the hell can I argue with 14-3? I can't.
There you go. There you go. All right, we're going to break this game down in a second. Go to get your game on at the Gallery Bar Booking Games in Ocean Casino Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on a parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the Gallery, go to Ocean, go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we got some big news. We're super excited to be giving away an overnight stay and 2 tickets to see Sarah Silverman on Saturday, February 4th at Ocean Casino Resort, Atlantic City. You just have to check out ITB's Twitter account at Inside Birds today at noon for more info on how you can get yourself entered into the giveaway.
Hey, am I excluded from this? Because she is hilarious.
You might be a little busy February 5th, right?
I'll
I know
fly
that's
back.
the week. No, that's the week. Yeah, you'll probably we might be flying out to Arizona, my friend.
Oh yeah, but
You're gonna have to take a rain check on that.
Yeah, she's really good. Yeah, she's very funny.
By the way, to purchase tickets to see Sarah Silverman, visit theoceanac.com. All right,
Nice.
proud to partner with Ocean
Awesome.
Casino there for a nice giveaway. Don't say we never gave you nothing. All right.
Oh, and Kobe Dean football from our
That's
friends
right.
at Sky Motor Cars.
That's
Love
right.
them for sponsoring us and getting that thing done. And we appreciate what the guy said. Getting that football, that's great. No, it's great when our sponsors give us special giveaways. It's awesome.
No doubt. All right, let us get into the injuries that we're going to discuss. There were mostly the ones that we knew about going into the game, and a little update. Jalen Hurts, Adam, I'm a little sort of surprised. So, I mean, we can only control what we control. We have a pretty large audience, and then we go on on the Fanatic, and then we have a big audience. But so I think we reach a lot of people, and we try to explain that injuries aren't like black and white or yes or no. It's not like you're 0% or 100%. There's an in between. So I thought we did a good job of communicating that his shoulder sprain, was sort of between a 1 and a 2. It was complex. There was some collarbone issue in there, and you're talking about an injury that it's hard to put a timetable on. Probably to be 100%, probably 4 to 6 weeks, and he wasn't even that far into it. Correct. So when he went out there and looked like a player who still was getting through the shoulder, and not all of his passes were crisp. He had a few almost INTs. He obviously tried to avoid contact, did a little sliding, this and that. And I just was listening to the game Monday, and people were like, "Oh man, I'm really worried about Hurts. This is not the offense that we've seen when he's at his best." And I keep saying, well, he's not fully through it, but he has 2 weeks more now to get. I have to imagine that's the way things work, is that when you give someone 2 more weeks on a 4 to 6 weeks injury and they get closer to 6 weeks, they're going to be stronger. So unless I'm crazy, but people seem to be really concerned about Hurts and how this offense is going to look in the divisional round based on what they saw on Sunday.
Well, I actually would agree with him in this context, though. This offense churns when Hurts is a dual threat quarterback. He's just, he is. It's so if he is not he had how many the 9 runs, I don't know how many of them were kneel downs, maybe 4 or 5. That I have to ask. I'm not sure if any of the runs were designed. It seemed to me it just scrambles when he got pressured, he ran.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything that I thought was designed.
Yeah, I don't think anything was designed, but I just want to double check. But anyway, so that's not this offense. It's just not. I get it. They're trying to protect him. That's why I said earlier in our show today, that it's clear to me that they didn't want Minshew out there. They saw the New Orleans game. They felt a 60 to 70% Hurts trying to get over this injury is better than Gardner Minshew. That they're telling you this. They don't have to say it. This is what they're doing. But my issue is, and I would agree with people who say this. This offense is just not going to be potent. They're not going to win if he doesn't run. The threat of the run, the way you've seen the tape, the way the defense reacts, they don't know what the hell to do when the RPOs are running great.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I would just question, why would you think 2 weeks from now or from Sunday that he's not going to be able to run the ball? I mean, he's going to be at that point 5 to 6 weeks. I mean, he should be almost fully recovered. Now, maybe a little. My point is, he can clearly throw the ball. I think he lacked the crispness, but he also made some tremendous throws. And he was obviously not running because he's trying to not re-aggravate it. So he did take some hits. So
there was one.
There were a couple. I just think in 2 weeks he's going to be 2 weeks stronger.
I mean, they did an overload where they completely poor Jack Driscoll didn't know what. There's just no way I don't care what the tape showed them. Until you see it live, you can't really prepare for Wink Martindale sometimes as well as you think you're prepared. Like, they did a great job in the first matchup, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Wink doesn't care if he's playing 11 backups. He's like, this is what we do, and we're not changing. And he's a big overload blitz guy, but the way that he brings it's very unique. And there was one where I was like, oh my God, they're going to get Hurts killed. He better move. And he did move. But I was like, I got very worried for him to get his shoulder pinned again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing this goes on your point. In 2 more weeks, even if we know he took contact, he should be better. And Sirianni did say, I think he was asked this. What Sirianni said is he didn't get the impression that he could really hurt the injury worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I could only go by what he says. He has better information than you and I or anyone else listening.
Yeah, I don't know how it's possible. If he had wound up taking the same kind of hit from a 310-pound lineman that he did against Chicago, it's hard to see how. But again, he protected himself well. I mean, he got hit a couple of times, but nothing like that. And I don't know. I fully expect in 2 weeks, and if I'm wrong, I'll be the first person to come out here and say, hey, I was wrong. Or if we get information that he had a setback or isn't strong, then we'll report it. But I would think that 2 more weeks is a significant amount of time for him to continue to strengthen the shoulder, throw the football in practice, and be ready to run when they play whoever they play in the first round.
All right. So one more thing. What did you, before we move on to a couple more injuries, then we'll get into what the tape looked like. What did you think of what Sirianni said Sunday night when he said, boy, Jalen was really in pain? I thought it was interesting. I think he did that on purpose. What were your thoughts?
I did think he probably exaggerated it. And then the second thing, I think that there's a natural soreness that you're going to have when you don't play a game in 2 weeks with a shoulder injury, and then you take some hits on that shoulder. I think that, which is not fully recovered. I think that that's natural. But I do agree with you. I think he wants everybody to think that Jalen Hurts is really hurting.
Well, no, I don't doubt that he's in pain. Of course, it's not even close to fully healed.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I overdid it. I just think he did that for a purpose. He wanted to protect Hurts.
Sure.
Hurts was sort of uneven in that game.
Yep.
And I think he wanted people to know why, because, and he his only work with the ones was Thursday and Friday. So leading, in the 3 weeks leading up to the game. So look, this is what you have, and you go from there. And as you said, we'll get to Sanders and some of the other backs, some of the other players here. The hope is within 2 weeks after this, we don't know if that game will be Saturday or Sunday, by the way.
Right.
Depends on who they play, but you hope, because man, they really need to get him running. The threat of the run with him it's just great to watch tape when you see these guys. That's why Sanders does well sometimes, because they don't know what the hell to do.
Right.
They react so much to Hurts. It's just remarkable.
If they happen to play Dallas in the divisional round, I don't see that game not being Sunday night. Do you? Is there any? I mean, I can't see any other time slot for that game other than Sunday night. Yeah,
it makes sense. They're national. Both teams are national. The Eagles are certainly a national team. Dallas is the number one national team. The Eagles, with TV people, they're a big. Look, how many? What did they get? 5 on the primetime this year?
Mm-hmm.
Not mistaken.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. That would make the most sense of any potential matchup. It's hard to believe yeah, it'd be hard to believe that if it's Dallas versus Eagles, yeah, for sure.
Right. All right. Miles Sanders, we already kind of talked about it. We know he's dealing with his left knee. It's been in a brace. I mean, he ran 11 times, was it? I think. Let me
Yeah,
go
and they
just check
pulled
that.
him. The other thing is they pulled him.
Well, there you go. You got more out of Boston Scott that way.
Yeah,
You got 9
they
carries,
did.
man. No, that's pretty good.
No, I said on our Sunday show, I was very impressed with him and Gainwell. What they ran combined 14 for 89. I thought 6.5 yards per carry. I thought they ran
Yeah,
really well.
they did.
Downhill, I get it's against backups, but hey, they did well. They pulled Sanders, and I don't think he got another. I don't think he even played the fourth quarter. I got to check. I don't remember getting a carry.
Which I have to think is all part of the preservation, I would think.
Sure,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah.
But my point with this is Sanders only had 29 snaps, which is season low.
Right.
It just was. Oh, another thing is they came out heavy 12 personnel, like way up at 12 this week.
Yeah. By the way, there was I don't know if it was at least one play where they came out in 13 personnel, but it didn't look like your traditional. It was 13 personnel, but 2 guys were actually flexed out. It wasn't. It was. I've never seen them do that before. Yeah.
Yeah, 81. Calcaterra did.
Yep.
It was interesting. So no, I have no idea. Was it because of Hurts coming back? I only they know that.
Probably because it was a passing formation. Like it wasn't like the 3 guys were bunched in and they were trying to fool anybody. They just had Stoll in line, Goddard and Calcaterra. Goddard was more like an interior slot on the left side of a 3-by-1, and Calcaterra was on the right side by himself, flexed pretty wide, like split wide. So they were clearly passing the ball, which they did. It just, I think that they were trying to get the Giants in base and then spread them out and then try to throw on linebackers. So it was just interesting. And, I'm sure that they weren't trying to show anything that they're actually going to do in the playoffs either. So that was probably specially for that
absolutely
game.
what I thought. We got more information on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I called you with some of my early notes from what I was told, just kind of some interesting things that they did.
Yeah.
So on the first 2 drives, Hurts was 3-6 for the first one, got himself together, was great on the second drive, 5 for 5. First 10 plays were throws. I know some people wanted to run the football. Well, here's what they did, which people didn't talk about. Their last 5 plays on the second drive where they scored were runs, and they ran it right at them. They blew the Giants off the football. Very well executed. 10 points in the first 2 drives. You would have loved to have 2 touchdowns, but they got 10. Field goal and a touchdown. Things are rolling. Yeah, things are rolling.
I got to bring up what you just said because I think there was a little back and forth on YouTube. Someone was not happy with the game plan, and maybe it was you or me, or someone responded and said, they scored 10 points on their first 2 drives, and the response from the commenter was, "Big deal. It came against the Giants' backups." But the only thing you could say is that you can't score more than 14 points on 2 drives. So whether it's against backup starters, the 1980s all-decade team, when you score 10 out of a possible 14 points, you've done a pretty good job. Like, it's almost like if you had said, well, they scored 14 points. Why are you criticizing run pass ratio? And they said, yeah, well, it came against backups. But you can't do better than it's not like they could have scored 21 points on their first 2 drives.
I don't get them. This is just that the people who want them to run the football, you could literally tell them if they would have scored 70 points, they're still going to say, why don't they run the football? There's nothing you could, and why argue with people who don't understand offensive football? I don't know what to tell you. We've done this for 3, like I was one of those people who are like, why the hell does Andy Reid, why won't he run the football?
Right.
I would learn talking to like 80 people over a series of years. Okay, I get it now. I understand this is the way you win in the National Football League. You come out throwing especially if you have passing personnel, which the Eagles do. I would love though to see Eagles Niners championship game. Would love to see because you got one team. Kyle Shanahan's more of a run game guy with great scheme and great pass design.
Mm-hmm.
This team, if they actually really decide they're going to run the football, they got if now, of course, if Lane Johnson's back or not, that's a big deal. But they've shown ability against Green Bay and other teams when they decide they're going to run it down someone's throat. It's incredible when they make their lineup doing it.
Yeah. Well, listen, shame on the Eagles for not being up by 3 possessions after their first 2 possessions. Okay, shame on them. Other injuries. Lane Johnson, we've detailed this. He's got the torn tendon, the adductor tendon. He's going to try to play through it once they play. We'll see. There's a lot of skepticism from the outside on can he make it through a game. We'll get into Jack Driscoll in a minute because he was the replacement again you have to feel at this point that's the direction they're going to go if Lane Johnson
Oh, yeah.
cannot play or gets hurt in the game, that Jack Driscoll is going to be the guy.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about in the pregame show. They did before the first game for Driscoll, we said we were hearing that probably going to be Driscoll, barring a surprise. He hasn't played at a particularly high level. We understand it. He's a backup player. You're going to probably get those results with backup players, though he has shown in other games over his career to look a little better.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some tough matchups, and this one with the personnel wasn't great for the Giants, but it was just about what they had to go up against. I would not want to put up a backup player against Linc Martindale.
Mm-mm.
He's just going to figure it out. As I said before, 32. There are 32 defense coordinators. All of them say that they try to break down protection. Few know how to do it.
Oh.
This guy's one of the best in NFL history, quite frankly, at breaking down your protection. He is roots in the 46 defense, from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
with Buddy Ryan's defense, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what he believes, and you better be ready for it. So before we move on, when you do this, when you decide to go with Driscoll,
Mm-hmm.
moving to your point, if Lane Johnson re-injures himself if he does play in the divisional round, you have to practice like the games without Johnson, they went with Driscoll. You can't just all of a sudden go with Mailata at right tackle.
Right.
All of a sudden, if Lane goes out, that's just not what you practiced.
I think the only way you see it happen is if Lane goes out early, Driscoll's in there at right tackle, and you're having one of those sort of, I hate to bring Winston Justice type games where, it's sack after sack, and you feel like you've got to stop the bleeding.
Andy wouldn't do anything.
Right. But you're right. The first course isn't just to yank Driscoll. It's to maybe just put a tight end there and help him out. But they might think that depending on the score, they might need all 5 outlets, and maybe they do make the change to Mailata and then get Dillard in there.
We talked about that. Me, you, Yvonne, Cosell. I talked about that exactly. About trying to help Driscoll out, and they may not want to do that.
Right.
That's not the way Andy Reid didn't like doing it. He hated it. He wanted 5 eligibles. He didn't want to keep a tight end in.
Right.
He didn't against the Giants. That's why Justice got taken to the cleaners.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Strahan, right? Strahan still playing?
It was OC that
OC,
really
I'm sorry,
got,
OC.
Yeah, OC.
OC. So anyway,
playing all night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they had some issues sorting a little bit. It was on Driscoll's side that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we talked about the first 2 drives. Scott looked very good. Boy, he second level runs.
Yeah. Well, let's just get through the injuries first, because we got Sweat and Maddox. I just want to address first.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Sweat should be fine. I mean, he had the neck, right? We expect him to be good to go, I would think.
Yeah,
by that first
Nick,
game.
our note 2 weeks ago, whenever it happened, I guess it was our Wednesday show. Sirianni kind of confirmed it. In a way, I can't believe this happened, buddy. I believe what Sirianni said. He said Sweat tried to push to play in this past game. They were not going to clear. It's a neck injury. You got to be careful.
Right.
But we were told that he felt like, I hate to say good to go. It's not the way I was told, but it's just translating the information we got. He was pretty good shape after, obviously they take precautions with neck injuries, but he should be working. I know they're going to practice later this week or do whatever they're going to do, and they get the weekend off. But next week, leading up to their first playoff game, it sure sounds like he's got a chance to start practicing, potentially play, which is what we were told. So
there you go.
Everything's good there. And then what do we know about the toe surgery or whatever he had?
Oh yeah, we know Maddox had his procedure, and you had the note that he was not on crutches though. He was in a boot, which is a positive development. He never went on IR. That's a good thing too. So again, I think you and I have talked to different people. We're not getting the vibe that he'll be available for the divisional round game, which would be the Eagles' first game, but maybe, potentially, if all things go well, maybe the conference championship. If the Eagles are in it, then you got a shot there. I mean, clearly the Eagles must have felt somewhere with their feedback that the possibility was there, or else they just would have put him on injured reserve.
Yeah, and that would have knocked him out for the playoffs. So
right.
Now, look, if he starts working next week, I'm not saying he's going to play, but if the key is, it's no different than a offensive skill position player. He's a slot corner. You got to be able to stick your foot in that ground, that whatever is right or left foot, toe, obviously, and he's got to be able to stop, turn, run, stop. The slot corner position is a lot of movement. So he's just, whenever they think he could start practicing, he's really got to show himself that he's back to normal to be able to play. It's just it's a tough deal, man. It's a shame. He's had a lot of injuries for pretty good slot corner, but he's just been hurt.
Yeah. So we'll continue to kind of get updates on that and see. But yeah, so it's good. That's why when Charles Davis said the Eagles had that look of a frustrated team that really wants to play again this coming weekend, I was like, no, Charles, they do not want to play a game this weekend. They've got some guys who would love to be rested up. They're not ready to be the Eagles that they want to be right now. But in 2 weeks, a lot different story.
Self-scout. I mean, yeah, self-scout is so important. It's the stuff about the looking at tendencies and all that. It's actually going back and seeing what you need to be better at, what some of the issues were offensively. Okay, why has Dallas Goedert, since he's been back, he's been a factor, but not the factor he needs to be? Are they too Devontae Smith intensive, with a passing game? He's been unbelievable. We gave those numbers in our pregame show, like the last 8 games leading into this last Giants game were just off the hook, crazy, phenomenal, with pass targets averaging about 9 a game. So do they need to whatever the case may be? It's just good. That's the beauty of having this bye. You could really figure out what is not working and clean it up a little bit. It's time you never thought you'd have, and you must take advantage of it.
There you go. All right, Adam, what is my favorite sports stock market app?
Mojo,
that's right. The sports stock market app where you can invest in your favorite players, invest in what you know, turn your sports knowledge into cold hard cash, right? With Mojo, the sports stock market. You buy shares in players that entitle you to a guaranteed payout based on career-ending stats. There are no off days. There is no off season because share prices can rise and fall constantly in real time based on career-long projections. You can cash out anytime, and you can build a portfolio as big as you want. You can buy and sell on your terms every play, every game, or every season. All right, so here's how it works. You just download the app, and you can choose between 300 or among 300 skill position players across the NFL: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Now, Mojo is available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you'll have a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. You just got to click the link in the description box of this podcast or YouTube video for a chance to win. Got to be 21 or over and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. But as we tell you all the time, Mojo will be coming to a state near you sometime in the future. So you want to start downloading it now, where you can do that. You can watch how the prices rise and fall on a weekly basis. You get yourself a leg up for when Mojo is ready to be fully available for you in the state that you live in, if it's not in New Jersey. If you got a gambling problem, help's available at 1-800-GAMBLER. As for some risers and fallers on Mojo, now it's no surprise, Adam. I mean, again, this is a very short-term thing. Like if you're just interested in making a quick, get the share price up, then sell. Boston Scott, we told you, it would be perfect. He's facing his favorite team, the Giants. 54 yards, touchdown. He was up almost 3.5% just on that game alone. All right. So this is like, I mean, we called it easy money.
He's my player of the game.
That's right. He was your player of the game.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, they got Geoff, that awful call. I guess it didn't look like he went to Dickerson on the penalty. Dickerson seemed like I thought it was 1 yard. Sure looked like it to me, and Smith, great catch back at the end, so that would have been 29 points. But Boston Scott scored again. Great, just ran right up the middle on their second drive.
Yep.
I mean, he got the job done. I mean, what else could he's a giant killer.
There you go, the Giant Slayer. All right, also up. This guy was up 12%. He made his first start, and I'm not talking about Davis Webb. Talking about division rival Washington. Sam Howell up 12%. All he did was throw for 169 yards and a touchdown and interception. However, again, did Ron Rivera sound like a man who is really trying to upgrade the quarterback position this offseason or other areas of the team? Because maybe Sam Howell is a guy who gets a shot next year. It's hard to see it happening for Carson Wentz at this point. And I think the Taylor Heineke deal has probably run its course too. So maybe Sam Howell, I mean, buy him low right now and see if he gets a chance to be the starter next year.
Well, as well. I mean, they have no commitment to him. Yeah, you just hit on it. You can't. There's nothing to lose if it's extremely low. Yeah, why not? But
Yeah,
Ron is a wonderful person. He should not have personnel control. That was a mistake by Daniel Snyder.
mm-hmm.
He's another defensive minded head coach. These guys, they don't believe in throwing the football. They just want to run it. Okay, play great defense. They've got great personnel, particularly in their front seven. But as long as Ron's the head coach of the Commandos, you as an Eagles fan should be very happy because they're not going to win until they figure it out a quarterback. And they haven't. They've been awful quarterbacks since he's taken the job.
Speaking of quarterbacks, here's a quarterback who popped up on the Fallers list that I was like, wait, what? But if you do the math, all right, Brock Purdy is looking pretty good. Trey Lance is down almost 6% for not even playing. But this just shows you how you don't have to play to have your stock impacted. And even though Lance will probably get the first shot to be the starter next year, I mean, what happens if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl? What are they going to do?
I'm thinking about it. I was actually asked that in an interview. I'm like, I remember asking the Eagles in 2017 after Foles went on that crazy run for 2 games, and someone in the front office laughed at me when I said, "Hey, I know this is dumb, but it's out there. Can I just ask you this question? Is there any way that Foles could be the quarterback next year?" He goes, "Come on, man, really?
Come on."
But I said it's just out there. I figured I'd ask, and then I got laughed at. I'm like, okay, but
he did win the Super Bowl. You can understand why it would be
exactly.
a little bit out there.
And he goes, "Are you kidding?" The person wasn't GM, it was somebody else. But he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "Wentz is the next superstar." He was until he wasn't. But it's this business is hilarious with quarterback play. It's just so up and down. You never know how long they can sustain it. There's so many mitigating factors.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are, Purdy Mania, the last pick overall in the NFL draft. Unbelievable how well he's playing.
It's been a good story for the NFL, so that's a good thing. Right. I mean, Kyle Shanahan continues to look like a genius, so that's a good thing for the Niners and the NFL. All right, so let's get into the offensive tape breakdown against the Giants defense, and we'll talk a little bit and listen.
Yeah, we just talked about it actually.
Yeah, and we all know the reality is that the Giants were playing, second stringers and third stringers out there, so we don't want to make too much of it. What did you think in general of the arm strength shown by the shoulder with the shoulder injury? I'm not talking about his overall. I'm just meaning how he threw the ball, considering his shoulder was hurting.
They took shot. Just a little bit to add to what we talked about earlier in the offensive tape.
Mm-hmm.
They took shot plays with him, but I don't think he looked clean throwing the football. I think it was some of it's due to pressure. I think his timing was off a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, and he just did not have a lot of work with the ones.
Agree.
So
like rusty, he just looked a little rusty, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
rusty. Yeah. I would take your point, like you said earlier in the show. 2 more weeks, get the shoulder as best as you can. He'll get more rehab on it, get it stronger. You should feel better because of the type of injury he has. It's and a moderate shoulder sprain. You can play within 2 weeks, but you can be in pain.
Right.
Like honestly, if this been the playoffs, the second week they could have pushed it, rehab 24 hours a day, and got him ready to play somehow. That you can do. I've seen this happen before with grade 1 plus shoulder sprains. But we don't know about the collarbone issue. I don't know what concern there was with that. But I just know that right shoulder sprain. Talking to so many medical personnel, like how these guys have this mindset. I'm playing, and if he could go out and throw with it, you play him. You might have to numb it up, whatever the case may be, and you play. But that's not where they were at. They were in a clinching category. But yes, it's not. To get into the playoffs, we have to win. So they played Minshew, which is a smart thing, and we'll see what he looks like. But to sum this up to move on here, I just don't think he was himself. They clearly are trying to protect him. They don't need to talk about this. Right. Although Sirianni did, he said he was in pain doing whatever the tape was. He was really hurting. Whatever he said, I believe him. And they were not going to let him run. They're telling you what they thought by not letting him run. We don't have to guess. They're
giving you the answers to the test, as you always like to say. Yes.
My favorite. I've used that for like 15 years. Got that from a coach. He goes, "I'm going to give you the answers to the test here." He goes, "Dude, you clearly don't understand." I'm like, "Okay, what am I not understanding?" He goes, "We just decide we're not going to do this." he goes, "Look at what we did. It tells you what you did." I'm like, "Okay,
right.
The answers to the test. okay.
We also like to talk about that in the offseason when, like, you know, a guy who was once a name signs a 1-year contract in June and people get excited. And we're like, listen, the NFL they're telling you that they don't value this guy the way they used to. You're excited about it, but the team isn't
a
that
reason why he's
excited
out there.
about it. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a reason why. Exactly.
Sure. Look, Kaiser White. I know he's not played as well as he did earlier this season. Brandon Staley didn't want him. I was told by a strong Chargers source he thought he was too small. Loved the kid, very productive tackler. Just they were looking for bigger players, and he had a chance to not. I mean, I guess he's from the area. You know, was he from Jersey? South? Was he from? Kaiser White from?
I forgot. He is from somewhere in this area, though. Yeah.
Right. So he signed a 1-year deal. Proved deal. Did pretty well. Though it's going to be hard for him to come back because they have so many free agents. But yeah, you're right. When guys sign in training camp, I know sometimes veterans they just don't want to be at practice. They don't want to be at OTAs. Okay.
Right.
But a lot of them are because teams just simply don't want the guys. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that basically was with Jaquaski Tart this year. I mean, he just was. Just didn't work.
And I'll say it again. Think about it. We would not be seeing. We'll get the defensive tape. CJ Gardner-Johnson would not be an Eagle if Tart worked out.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, given how the Giants play defense, we said this in the pregame show. Just because they're playing backups doesn't mean Wink Martindale is going to do something different. He's a heavy blitzer. He's a heavy overloader. He's a guy who leaves his corners. He plays a lot of defensive backs and leaves them in one-on-ones. And the Eagles have some pretty good one-on-one beaters in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So it should be no surprise that Brown had the 95 yards and it became the franchise leader in single season in receiving yards. And Devontae Smith got 7 receptions. He got 95 for the year, which is the most ever by an Eagles wide receiver. And he had 67 yards. And then do you remember the one where he's like running and bobbling it twice and still winds up catching it in traffic? That's
unbelievable. I asked you and Yvonne and Cosell this question about what makes Devontae Smith so great. I'm not shocked. I'm a little bit surprised he's this good. I get that he won the Heisman Trophy as a receiver. That's like really, it's usually a quarterback award. But you see a guy who's maybe 165. He's just I don't know how he does it. He's not afraid of contact. He'll take it on. He doesn't care. He gets in and out of his breaks. He's a tremendous route runner, as Jason showed us as he talked about on our show, pregame show. To me, we're starting to see why the Eagles they traded up for him. They traded up for him.
Yeah, they moved up ahead of was it Dallas or the Giants that they moved up?
The Giants, right?
Because then the Giants traded all the way back and took Tony. Yeah,
right. Of course, they traded. Good job, Gettleman. But he's just I am blown away by this kid. I can't believe like Deshaun is still can run and he hit a monster year on a chip, but this kid is so gifted. And Cosell told us, he goes, one thing about people don't talk about enough is he can do the shot play stuff. He did it at Alabama.
Yes. Yeah.
No?
So I'm going to go back to the draft when we were doing a lot of work on him and others, and some of the scouting reports we were given, and the name Marvin Harrison came up a lot as a comp. Cosell didn't love the comp because they're not built the same way. Obviously Devontae's a little bit more of a long strider and built differently. But I think what the people who used the Marvin Harrison comp were trying to say was that his route running and his precision and his subtlety and the technician that he does everything well. There may
Gets in and out of his breaks.
Yeah, there may not be one thing that he's the best at in the NFL at wide receiver. He's not as explosive as Tyreek Hill. He can't go get balls the way Justin Jefferson does, but he can go get them. He can climb. I'm just saying he's not number one, but he might be one of the most complete wide receivers in that he can do everything at a really high level and do it well. And I just really appreciate that for a guy who's 169 pounds. It's unique. It's really cool.
He's just the way he moves so effortlessly, and of course it takes a lot of effort, but just in and out of his breaks, start and stop ability is ridiculous. I love when he sets the DBs up and the guy goes one way, he goes the other. Pretty cool to watch the all 22.
Yeah, he's also a willing blocker, by the way. I think that
I've mentioned that
he's not a bad blocker for a guy that size.
Hey, he played at Alabama. Yeah, these kids are
great point.
Are so schooled and how to play. And Bill O'Brien is there. Is he still there at Alabama?
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
It's just all the coaches who've worked at Alabama. Mike Rowe, and you look at all these guys who have been pro coaches, and Stark and
Stoutland,
Stout, of course. Oh hell yeah! Kudos to Chip, one of the few good gifts he left the Eagles.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it. That with offense, we've kind of unless you have.
Well, you mentioned one thing that I want to share with people, right? You mentioned the idea of sorting for the offensive line and trying to, figure out what Martindale is doing, because Martindale is so good at breaking down protection schemes, right? That was a big thing we talked about for the game. And there was a certain play that I want to bring some light to. So for people who are watching this, hopefully they'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And then if you're listening, I'm going to do my best to be descriptive, right? So this is a 3rd and 9. Adam, you can see it, right?
Yep, perfect.
3rd and 9. As you can see here, the Eagles are empty. They got a 2-by-3 formation, 2 receivers tight to the left, 3 receivers split here on to the right. Okay. And what are the Giants doing? Well, they're basically putting 5 defensive backs to match those 5 receivers. So this looks like man with everybody else at the line of scrimmage. That's a 0 blitz. There's no safety deep here to help out. All these guys are in man coverage. All these guys are rushing the passer. So Jalen Hurts knows that in an empty here, he's got no blitz pickup, no running back, no tight end to stay in. He's only got 5 guys to block 6 at scrimmage. So that cues to the quarterback that he's going to have to throw the ball very quickly, right? Now, if you when I'm going to press play here and watch the snap, you can see right at the snap of the ball, Adam, it's as I like to say, according to Hoyle, 5 in man coverage, 6 rushing. That is still a 0 blitz. So Jalen knows he's going to have to throw the ball. But the amazing thing about
no deep safety, right?
The amazing thing, no deep safety, man coverage. The amazing thing is just at the last second, as he gets the ball and looks, these 2 rushers stop rushing and they start to drop. That means this 6-man front is really just a 4-man front. But the offensive line, Adam, as you can see right here, they've already slid to the right side expecting a blitz. So when they continue to slide and protect, you get this guy, a free rusher, yet it's only a 4-man rush.
Ooh.
That is the epitome of Don Martindale figuring out a way to only rush 4. But how often do you see 4 rushing against 5 linemen and get a free rusher to the quarterback?
The illusion of pressure actually is pressure. It's interesting.
It's amazing. It really is.
Cool.
Now, the cooler thing is, and I have so much admiration for not only this blitz scheme, but for Jalen to be able to decipher it, that these 2 guys drop right in front of Dallas Goedert. Now, you got to think what the defensive coordinator is thinking. If I blitz this guy and he's got no blitz pickup and he has to get rid of the ball, he's probably going to want to throw it to the closest guy.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's 3rd and 9. So it's a great blitz because if you want first down, you have to throw it past the sticks, but it's impossible to throw it past the sticks with such little time.
Where's he going? I don't even remember this play. Go ahead. Yeah.
For opening drive, right? So what happens is he backs up. Those 2 guys cover Goddard, but he still
how did he get rid of that? Okay, I remember this now. This is a 14-yarder. This is he got the ball
to just to finish off. He got the ball to Watkins here, who is well short of the sticks, but that's your friend Nick what's his name? McLeod. Who really should have played that more flat-footed, and he got a little aggressive.
It's a great throw because you can't see this off TV, this kind of view. That's an unbelievable throw.
Right.
Because you have literally a split second. You either throw it for a pick in the middle, or you somehow peripheral vision, maybe.
Right.
He must have seen out of his left eye. Okay, I see this. I might have this.
Right.
And the mini stack right there. Yeah, that's
the only thing he's got to work on is that there's some pretty good off coverage here. So he knows, right, he has to throw quick, and that's the route is favorable to him. Now, there's 2 things that I think the Giants messed up here. I've run this by 2 people who have either played or coached on defense, okay, in the league.
Okay.
And they think that the 2 guys who wind up dropping, that it shouldn't have been 2 dropping in front of Dallas Goedert. What they think was supposed to happen was this guy, 1 dropper, is in front of Goddard, and that guy drops here to take away Quez Watkins. Now, can you imagine if that guy drops in front of Watkins, Jalen Hurts is killed. I mean, he almost got killed anyway. You can see how close he was getting sacked. But if he didn't have that outlet there,
turn his shoulder.
Yeah, you see him turn his shoulder right here, almost Eli
Ooh.
Manning style.
Well, could you? I want to see what I want to see what happens here with Hurts. Does he get flattened?
No,
You can't see
because
this.
the guy's
No, he
afraid of the
spun out.
penalty.
Good,
Yeah,
good for him because
yeah,
that would
yeah.
worry me. As amazing throw. If he would have gotten hit and thrown down, that would have bothered me. Wow,
Yeah,
I would
I
have been
just
very upset if I was a coach.
yeah, great job by Jalen, and really Don
Good visual,
Martindale
good job.
probably like he was probably so mad because it's so rare that you can get a free rusher to the quarterback when you only rush 4 guys, and that was really a fantastic job of not of disguise, deception, and breaking, like you said, breaking down a protection scheme. It doesn't always mean your protection scheme is bad. I don't think the Eagles did anything unsound there. They did what they were supposed to do, and
Yeah.
the Giants still got a free rusher. That's just great stuff.
And he doesn't care. Again, he doesn't care if he's got 11 backups. He
Right.
doesn't coach scared this guy. He's just, this is what he does. He's not changing. You could give him 11 third stringers. He's like, this is what we're doing. If they beat us, who cares? You know, he's like, all right, hey, you beat us with our scheme. You beat our
Right.
guys. Okay.
Right.
You know, good stuff.
All right, let's get to the Eagles defense against the Giants offense. First, we're going to stop to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right. So this was, I know a lot of people complained about JG. They wanted to see a little bit more. Yep. We even said, could you just tighten up? You know, like play up on these guys a little bit.
You route these guys.
Yeah.
You got the 3 guys we said in the pregame were gonna get the ball. They got the ball. Larry Cager, I love to call him that. I didn't think he was gonna do that well. Jeez, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't. He just coaches a specific way. Again, the results are so good this season. It's hard to argue against them. But it doesn't mean you can't bring stuff up.
Right. Right.
It's just I was a little surprised. They got a lot of production when in Eagles sub package because they were up by so many points. They were like, okay, go ahead. In fact, they ran the ball when the Giants ran it in the second half. They had success because the Eagles were in sub. They must have been. I have to get the numbers. They must have been in sub like I don't know, middle of the second on for the rest of the game because they got up early, you know, by quite a bit.
Right.
And they knew the Giants had bad personnel. See, some D coordinators were like, "Oh hell, that they have bad personnel. We're just gonna blitz because they're playing with Davis Webb, they're playing with these backup receivers, backup offensive line, except for Evan Neal, and that's just what Gannon does. Looks at it a different way. And again, hard to argue with results. So it got very hairy late, just shouldn't have, but which I think sometimes also. Just talking to players and coaches over there, specifically coaches, it's hard when you know you're going up against backups to get your guys to play at their best. Something seeps in the subconscious. I've heard this a bunch of times from coaches over here. So no matter what you say to these guys, they listen. They seem to buy in. They hear you during the week, and then something happens during the game. They're just not at their best for the entire game. Like they were pretty disciplined in the first half, and then late in the game, boy, the fourth quarter as it progressed, I'm like, I know they're not going to lose, and I was like never thinking like they could lose. But it just seemed like, okay, what are you guys like acting like this game's over? Like, what is going on?
No, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think the biggest thing we can take from it is the role that we saw CJ Gardner-Johnson play in his return, and I was shocked. You brought this to my attention. I couldn't tell. He played the entire game, right? I mean, he played.
I didn't know that. Yeah. I called you Monday. I said, hey, here's what I'm told. Let's look more into this. That he played safety on first 2 downs and nickel.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell that they were rotating him. I just thought that I mean, not rotating him from position to position. I just didn't realize he was going to play as much as he did.
See, I didn't know that. I just was getting some notes from our sources, and I was like, all right. It's kind of we gave this scenario. This is probably going to be what they're going to do because this love affair. I Reed Blankenship's been an amazing story,
Hmm.
but my only issue with it is you don't want to take away Gardner-Johnson's role in terms of a ball tracker.
Yeah.
He's just unbelievable at it. Didn't know he was anything like this because he was basically a slot corner.
Hmm.
Last year, as Greg Cosell told us, one of the best slot corners he'd seen. They have never had anyone like this. Doc was obviously a Hall of Famer, but he wasn't a ball tracker like this. It just, I don't know I don't even know what he does, what Gardner-Johnson could do could be taught. I don't know. Maybe it can be, but I don't know if the Eagles knew that he could do this. And plus, I can't emphasize this enough. To learn this defense at the start of the season, like his training camp was in season. I mean, and he's
Yeah.
still tied. I think he's tied now with the interception lead with the NFL,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Still
Come on.
tied. So, I listen, I can sit here and say I agree or disagree with it. I'm not the football expert. They'll have
You
to
gotta
answer.
trust them.
I will just say this, but I think when the Eagles defense is at its best, CJ Gardner-Johnson was playing safety and the Eagles were producing a ton of turnovers. I remember saying at the halfway point, the reason why I thought the Eagles were head and shoulders above teams was because not only were the most complete team, but because they were the best turnover ratio team in the NFL. Games in the NFL are won by turnovers. And it is, in my evaluation, you put CJ Gardner-Johnson in a better position to create those turnovers when he's playing safety and looking at the quarterback, as opposed to playing slot, defending a slot receiver or tight end, and may have his back turned to the quarterback because they play mostly man on the inside. So we'll see. I mean, it's sort of like you're strengthening one position, you might be weakening for another. I don't think the Eagles are the same when they don't produce turnovers. They can still be good on defense, but they're not like a strong enough, stout enough, like sort of 49ers-ish, I'll pound you into submission defense to just be good, just to line up and play. They're best when they flip the field and make plays. And if you're putting him in a position where he's not able to make the kind of plays that he did in the first half of the season, I question it a little bit. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong about that.
Yeah, I look. Here's what we learned. This is another. They gave the answers to the test. They made a decision. They did not want Josiah Scott on the field on defense. He was only going to play special. They made this clear. We don't have to guess. The stats tell you he didn't play one snap on defense. So they clearly wanted Gardner-Johnson as their slot corner. Okay, and by the way, he was great at it last year. Now the way the Eagles play their slot's not the same way that the Saints play their slot. But again, he's an inside player in sub package. Okay, we'll see. It's not like he can't get a turnover on first or second down. It's not like teams won't throw on first or second. In fact, the best time to throw is on first, particularly early in the game because teams don't play sub early in the first quarter usually. So we'll see what happens. But you have to trust their decision here. Now, this keeps happening. They're getting hit on intermediate throws. I mentioned this in the previous show. Someone I spoke with on Monday said, man, Philly's got coverage issues with their linebackers. I need to check on who exactly might be the culprit, so to speak. But Cager got them. He's because he doesn't run well enough. He's a quasi tight end / receiver. Came into the NFL as a receiver. The Jets moved him to tight end. He's I guess he played receiver, I think, in this game. I'd have to find out, but all I could tell you is they didn't have a lot of receivers dressed, and he had to catch the football, and he sure did. That would disappoint me that he was able to what did he have, 8 catches or something?
Cager?
Yeah.
Your buddy Larry?
10 targets?
Yeah, he had a lot of well, I mean, look who's out there. Yeah, 8
I know.
catches for 69 yards.
It's funny because Marcus Johnson, we said before the game the 3 guys are going to catch the football: be Cager, Marcus Johnson, and Kenny Galladay. But I said how the coaches don't want to play Galladay; they don't have a choice. They just kind of moved on. They literally refused to play the guy.
Even in a meaningless game, he could only get 7 targets. He couldn't even.
And then he has the greatest catch like he's ever had in his career.
I know. Kenny Galladay in a nutshell, right there.
Let me say this about this play on. I know people are beating up Slay. He's not the same player. Greg Cosell continues to say it's not true. Every time we ask Greg about Slay, he goes, "No." He goes, "I know what the numbers say." He doesn't believe in the quarterback rating against Slay. As he says, what does that mean?
Right.
Okay, so they completed against him. Is he giving up touchdowns? No. That time he did. Is he giving up big plays consistently? No. So okay.
Right.
But we'll get more opinions on
Okay.
what people think about Slay for the playoffs. But
I think
and
the
the
big
play that-
question is Blankenship. I mean, is he going to be able to be an adequate safety in the
he's
playoffs?
not. I was told he's not getting beat. Yes,
Heard
in
the
the
same.
Green Bay game, he clearly got beat, although he had the interception against Rodgers.
Right.
But he's not giving up a lot of plays. The coaches, he's like another coach's pet. You think Zach Pascal is for Sirianni? The coaches like adore this kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's mentally strong. He's not a very good athlete. That's why he wasn't drafted. But he's
Right.
seems to be there when he should be. But you know what, folks? Here's the thing: they're not. Well, they could play the Giants at some point in the playoffs. The schedule theoretically will get much harder. Teams know he's on the field. Coaches are smart. They're going to figure out ways to expose him when they're in sub. When he's playing safety and Gardner-Johnson's in the slot. So okay, we'll see.
Yeah. The one thing, some feedback and even noticeable is that, like you said, not a great athlete. So sometimes there'll be a crossing route or a deep over in front of him where the receiver catches it and the receiver gets the ability to kind of turn up the field quickly and can get past him if he doesn't take the best route to it, or because he's got to make up the difference in his speed and athleticism versus the receiver, which is not always easy. So, but I do you can tell he's in the right place at the right time. He's not a lot of blown coverages, not a lot of mistakes. I mean, yeah, he got trucked by Davis Webb at the goal line. I'm sure he'd like to have that back. Yeah. But in general, I guess, like you said, they feel more comfortable with him out there playing that position than Josiah Scott playing the slot.
One thing, because the Eagles were in sub a decent amount, part of it's probably to preserve Linval. Joseph barely played. And you could see because the Giants, Gary Brightwell, I was like, oh boy, Gary Brightwell. People were actually starting him in fantasy in week 18. Can you believe that? Because
I guess I could understand if you were, deep league and you knew he was going to get a bunch of touches.
Sure, because you figure they're playing all the backups. And
he did well. He had 60 yards, right? He did well.
Yeah, he ran well. I was like, wow, okay. Matt Breida got a run there.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. It's not like they took it like a preseason game, but they didn't do anything exotic. I don't agree with it because to me, you set the mentality going to the playoffs. You bring it. Let's leave Hurts out of it because he had a clear injury and they were trying to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know why Gannon didn't want to bring it, but you have to accept it. The numbers are so good, it's hard to argue.
Mm-hmm.
But we also saw the Dallas game, folks.
That's
the one would worry you. Like, what's your plan against better offenses, passing games? You got to adjust, man. That's the one thing that you kind of worry about because sometimes he's slow to admit that this isn't working. Like Herm Edwards would always say, a plan that can't be changed is a bad plan. I agree with the coach.
Good way to end it there. I like that. All right. The next podcast, Friday morning, end of the year awards, myself, Adam Caplan, Andrew DeCecco. We look forward to doing that. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.